I was standing in line at my own bank, and they told me I wasn't allowed to withdraw my own money. The teller didn't ask for my name, didn't even check my ID. She just looked me up and down, hoodie, jeans, dark skin, and decided I was a problem, like I didn't belong there, like I was wasting her time. I'm here to make a withdrawal. I said, calm and clear. She gave a tight, fake smile. Sorry, see ya. You'll need to take that kind of request to your own branch. This is my branch. I said, her eyes narrowed, not according to the system. Behind me, two men in suits chuckled. One muttered something about the nerve. I kept my hands visible, voice steady. I've been through this song before, but this time, I wasn't going to let it slide. She called over the branch manager. He didn't even say hello, just launched into a rehearsed line. We reserve the right to refuse service under suspicious activity. I asked what was suspicious. He looked at me, not my account, not my ID, me. Then he said, you don't look like someone with 7 figures in the bank. I stared at him. Stunnet, not at the racism. That part, I expected. No, what stunned me was how easy they made it. 7 minutes later, I was in the branch conference room on a call with corporate, and 5 minutes after that, I fired the manager in front of everyone, right there in the lobby, because they didn't just insult a customer, they insulted the owner. But before that moment of power, you need to understand who I was and why this hit so deep. I wasn't born into wealth, far from it. I grew up in the south side of Chicago, raised by a single mother who worked 2 jobs and still somehow had time to press my shirt every Sunday before church. We didn't have a lot, but she taught me the value of 3 things: pride, discipline, and never letting anyone tell you your worth. We lived in a small apartment above a bodega. My bedroom window faced a brick wall, and in the winters, we had to tape plastic over it to keep the cold out. Every morning, I'd walk past liquor stores, boarded up businesses, and people who had given up on hope, but my mom never gave up on me. She believed in education like it was religion. She'd sit with me after her shift, reviewing my spelling tests. When I got accepted to college on a full ride, she cried so hard she forgot to cook dinner that night. We ate cereal and danced in the kitchen instead. I majored in finance, not because I loved numbers, but because I wanted to understand the system that had kept people like us out for generations. I wanted to break it open from the inside. After college, I took the job nobody wanted, junior analyst at a private equity firm. I was the only black man on the floor, and they made sure I knew it. I got coffee orders wrong once and was mocked for weeks. They joked that I was diversity decoration in meetings. So I worked harder, came in earlier, stayed later, read everything, said little. By the time I was 32, I had enough to walk away. But I didn't. I started my own firm. Instead, bought out struggling companies, restructured them, made them profitable again, quietly, strategically. One of those companies was a regional bank chain. The same bank I walked into that morning, my name wasn't on the building. No, but my signature was on the acquisition deal. I had controlling interest. I owned the charter, but I never flaunted it. I believed in walking into a room and being underestimated. It was the best way to see who people really were. So when I decided to visit one of my branches that morning, just another random Tuesday, I threw on a hoodie, jeans, and drove my own car. No security, no assistant. I wanted to see how regular people were treated. What I didn't expect was to be the one disrespected, to be denied a simple transaction, to be told in not so many words that I didn't belong. But that's the thing about humility. When you've been overlooked your whole life, you learn how to watch, how to wait. And in that moment, I wasn't angry, I was ready. Because now I knew exactly what kind of culture had taken root in my own house. And I was about to rip it out from the root in front of everybody. The moment I stepped through the bank's glass doors, you felt it, the pause in the air, the kind you feel when you walk into a space where you're not expected and not wanted. There were only 4 people in the lobby, 2 suited white men talking near the loan officer's cubicle. An older woman filling out a deposit slip, and a young teller behind the counter. Her name tag said Heather. Her eyes said, hurry up and leave. I stood in line quietly. When it was my turn, I stepped forward and smiled. Morning, I have an appointment on file, but I'd also like to make a withdrawal high value. Heather looked at me like I just asked her for a kidney. Withdrawal. She repeated, skeptical. Yes, from my business account. She didn't ask for my ID. She didn't ask for the account number. She just tilted her head and said, sir, we don't typically handle large cash requests without prior verification. You need to go through corporate or try a different branch. My voice was calm. Actually, I called last week and confirmed the funds would be prepared for pickup today. I spoke with your assistant manager. She raised her eyebrows. Well, she's not in, and without proper clearance, I don't think I can help you. Then came the real hit. She leaned forward slightly and said, lower this time. Sir, this kind of thing can look suspicious. You know how it is. Oh, I know exactly how it is. Before I could respond, one of the suited men behind me stepped up. Everything okay? Heather? He asked. Probably a branch supervisor. Late 40s, wedding ring, smug smile. Heather nodded toward me. He's asking for a high value withdrawal. Doesn't have documentation. I held up my phone. Actually, I have confirmation right here. The supervisor didn't even look at the screen. He just folded his arms and said, we reserve the right to refuse service when a transaction seems irregular. Based on what I asked, he glanced at my clothes, then back at me. Gut feeling, I nodded slowly, let it sit in the air. May I speak with the branch manager? I asked. The supervisor laughed. You looking at him? Of course I was. I glanced at the clock. 7 minutes past 9. 0 Behind me, the lobby had grown quiet. The woman with the deposit slip looked uncomfortable. The men in suits had gone silent. I stepped back, pulled out my phone, and tapped a name. Denise Taylor, Corporate Director of Operations. She answered on the second ring. Denise? I said, my voice smooth but sharp. We've got a culture problem at branch 117. I'm here now, and I'd like to address it personally. There was a pause on her end. Then, understood. I'll patch you through to legal and notify security. I turned back to the manager and the teller. Change of plans. I said, there will be a meeting today. And trust me, you don't want to miss it. This wasn't the first time I'd been sized up and shut down. It wasn't even the 10th. That's the thing they never understand. When you grow up in a world that treats you like you're less, you learn to live with a certain weight pressing on your chest, not heavy enough to crush you outright, and just heavy enough to remind you you're not free. In boardrooms, I was always the partner from out of town. Even though I built the damn firm, on flights, I was asked more than once if I was seated in the right cabin. In hotels, I was mistaken for staff more often than I care to admit. But what hurt more than those moments were the ones when I chose silence, because the cost of speaking up was always too high. Lose the deal, get labeled aggressive, make the other party uncomfortable. I learned how to swallow it, how to keep my face neutral even when my soul was on fire. And in that branch, with the teller and the manager standing there dismissing me like a criminal trying to steal from his own vault, I felt all of it flood back. The childhood moments when my mom and I were followed around stores, the college interview where the recruiter asked me if English was my first language, even though I graduated top of my class in Chicago, the corporate retreat where my VP introduced me as the IT guy because he assumed I couldn't possibly own the firm. So yeah, I knew how to keep quiet, but I also knew how to listen while I waited in that branch while Denise from corporate routed the calls. And my legal team started pulling documentation. I sat down quietly in the corner of the lobby. They thought I'd left. I watched as Heather laughed with a white customer full smile. Warm tone, the exact opposite of the clipped voice she used with me. I listened as the branch manager joked to his colleague, "You believe this guy shows up in a hoodie thinking he owns the place." The irony almost made me laugh out loud. I watched as a Latino couple came in well-dressed, polite, and were told they'd have to wait 30 minutes to open a checking account. Even though no one was in line, I saw how they were spoken to, how they hesitated, and I realized something. This wasn't about me. It was bigger. This branch, my branch, had become a reflection of everything I swore I'd fight against. Bias hidden behind policy, gatekeeping disguised as procedure, power in the hands of people who had never once been held accountable for how they used it. And I'd been too comfortable, too hands-off, too willing to believe that just owning something meant I controlled it. But power is like a garden if you don't tend it. The weeds take over. So I sat there, quiet, calm, watching the rot reveal itself. And as the clock ticked toward 9:30, I made a silent promise to myself. I would never sit in silence again. The next time I opened my mouth, it wouldn't be to ask for permission. It would be to take back control. I sat in that lobby for 20 more minutes. No one offered to help me. No one made eye contact. To them, I was just some guy who made a scene and then realized he didn't belong. But what they didn't know was that I had every right to be there more than anyone else in that building, because 6 months earlier, I'd closed a deal to acquire controlling interest in the regional bank chain quietly through a holding company I owned. No press release, no interviews, just paperwork and wire transfers. I had learned long ago, real power doesn't announce itself. It listens, it observes, and then it moves with precision. I wasn't just some investor. I was the largest shareholder on record, the man whose vote could approve or remove any executive at any level. The irony, the man who denied me service had actually signed a welcome letter I wrote. Not that he ever knew who it came from. My name wasn't on the top, it was in the footer. That's how I liked it. I wasn't the kind of CEO who needed to see my name on plaques or buildings. I didn't need handshakes in boardrooms or front page interviews. I built my empire in silence, and in silence, I studied everything. I knew which branches had the most complaints. I knew which locations hired for image instead of impact. I read the transcript from customer surveys, internal memos, exit interviews. This branch, it had been flagged multiple times, but I gave them the benefit of the doubt. I figured maybe it was a training issue, or maybe a few bad attitudes. But now, I knew better. This wasn't incompetence. It was culture. It was gatekeeping, prejudice, ego. And that was something I couldn't let slide. At 9:42 a.m., I got a text from Denise at corporate. Legal has joined. Video call link active. Conference room ready. I stood up and walked past the teller counter. Sir, you can't go back there. Heather called after me. I didn't break stride. I have authorization. I said, coolly, the manager moved fast, stepping in front of the hallway. You need to leave. He said, louder this time. His voice carried into the lobby. Everyone turned to look. I stopped inches from him, looked him square in the eye. Do you even know who I am? I asked. Herr Sneert, another guy who thinks the rules don't apply to him. I smiled. Funny. I was thinking the same thing about you. I pulled out my phone, opened an app, hit send. It looked confused. Seconds later, his phone buzzed. He looked down, froze, because on his screen, a secure message just came through. Notice of immediate employment review from the office of the chairman. His eyes darted back up at me. I leaned in slightly. You just got that from me. Then I stepped past him, walked into my conference room, and joined the call. Inside were 4 faces on screen: Denise, our chief counsel, the regional VP, and our HR director, all waiting, all ready. I took my seat, adjusted the camera, and said, let's begin. The camera was rolling. The voices on the screen were calm and professional, but the energy had shifted. They all knew why we were here. Before we take action, I said, we're going to build the full picture. I want documentation, video, every complaint, every excuse. I want to make sure no one can say they didn't know, because if I'd learned anything over the years, it was this. If you don't come with receipts, people will twist your story. So I always moved in silence until the files were full. And now, it was time to pull the folder wide open. I asked our HR director, Megan, to walk me through every employee report from the last 18 months. In less than 10 minutes, the pattern became undeniable. 3 separate complaints from minority clients, all dismissed without escalation. 2 tellers of color transferred out due to workplace hostility. An assistant manager, Latina, let go under suspicious performance grounds despite glowing performance reviews. And that was just a paper trail. I looked to Denise next. Security footage. She nodded. Already pulled. We have audio. She shared her screen. There it was, me, standing in line that morning, calm, respectful, and there was Heather leaning back in her chair, arms folded, face tight, no greeting, no ID check, no transaction attempt. The moment the branch manager stepped in, Avon Verse, guy walks in here like he's the king of Compton. He muttered. I didn't flinch watching it. I knew it was, but I knew this was the clip that would sink him. Then came something else, something I hadn't heard the first time. After I walked to the back, the manager turned to the teller and said, laughing, Betty's outside right now, calling his cousin to rob the place. Silence on the call. Even Denise, a seasoned corporate operator, blinked hard. We'll have legal review this, but that's termination level behavior. It's culture. I said quietly, and we need to burn it out. But I wasn't done yet. Full client feedback from this branch. I told the analytics team, last 6 months, they dropped a report into the shared drive. 83% of complaints were about staff behavior. 57% specifically mentioned disrespectful treatment. Of those, 91% came from Black, Latino, immigrant client. I closed the report and leaned back. You see why I came here in person? I asked, because numbers can be ignored, but experience can't be. Denise nodded. Understood? I looked straight into the camera. We will make this public, internally and externally, not out of spite, but transparency. I want clients to know change is happening. I want employees to know this company stands for more. Megan asked quietly, do you want me to handle the terminations? I shook my head. No, I'm going to do that myself. Because I wanted to look these people in the eye, the ones who judge me. Ginyedme mocked me and let them know, not only was I not who they thought, I was someone they would never forget. I walked out of that conference room with calm steps and a full heart, because I wasn't walking out as a victim. I was walking out as a mirror, and it was time for everyone in that lobby to see themselves for who they really were. The branch was busier now. A few more clients had arrived. 2 men were at the counter. A family waited in chairs by the glass wall. The branch manager saw me first. He was by the teller station, laughing with Heather. When he saw me coming, his face fell into that tight-lipped smirk men wear when they think they're still in control. Back again. He said, loud enough for others to hear. I didn't answer him. I walked straight to the middle of the lobby, turned slowly, made sure I had the room's attention. Then I said, in a clear, steady voice, my name is Jordan Miles. I'm the majority shareholder of this bank. Silence. Heather blinked. The manager's jaw clenched. I came here today to see how my clients are treated when no one's watching. What I experienced this morning, what I witnessed in the last hour, unacceptable doesn't begin to cover it. I pulled out a stack of documents printed during my call with legal and held them up. This branch has a pattern of discrimination, disrespect, and leadership failure. And it ends today. Heather's eyes widened. The manager's face flushed. This morning, I continue. I was denied service, laughed at, dismissed, all without anyone verifying who I was. No attempt to access my account, no protocol followed. I paused. Instead, I was profiled, labeled suspicious, and openly mocked behind my back. Gasps now. One of the waiting clients stood up slowly. A woman by the ATM took her phone out filming. Good. Let them see. I turned to the branch manager. You've created a culture of exclusion. Your words were caught on security footage. Your actions are documented. As of this moment, your employment is terminated, He took a step forward. You can't just, I already have. I said, security will escort you out after you gather your personal items. You'll receive no severance. Then I turned to Heather. You failed to follow basic policy, ignored a client's rights, participated in a discriminatory atmosphere. You're dismissed as well. Her mouth fell open. I didn't mean, I'm sure you didn't, but intent doesn't erase impact. The room stayed silent, except for the woman filming. She nodded, like someone who'd waited a long time to see a moment like this. I turned back to the rest of the room. Let this be clear. I said, this bank serves everyone, and I will not tolerate behavior that says otherwise. I walked toward the exit, then paused. I built this institution to be different. I said over my shoulder, and starting today, it finally will be. As I stepped outside into the sunlight, people were still frozen inside, but they wouldn't forget, because sometimes the best revenge isn't shouting, is reclaiming the space they tried to push you out of and making sure they never get to decide who belongs again. By noon, the story had already spread. Someone uploaded the confrontation to TikTok. It hit 0 views in 2 hours. Then came the retweets, the think pieces, the screenshots of my shareholder statement confirming I was, in fact, the man behind the bank's controlling interest. People were stunned. But what surprised me most was how quickly other voices came forward. A retired black veteran posted about being denied a home loan by that same manager 2 years ago. A young Latina mother shared how Heather refused to help her open a savings account without more paperwork, even though she brought everything required. A Muslim business owner posted his Yelp review from last year. Felt like I was being treated like a threat, not a customer. And suddenly, the pattern wasn't just internal. It was everywhere. The media picked it up next. A local business podcast reached out, then a regional affiliate. Headlines ran with the angle, bank CEO fires manager after being profiled at his own branch. Executive turned away while black responds with power move. When the CEO looks like a customer you ignored. Meanwhile, inside the company, the cleanup had already begun. The terminated manager sent a flurry of emails to HR, claiming misunderstanding, pressure, and even that he had felt threatened by my presence. We had the footage, we had the audio, and most importantly, we had the paper trail. There would be no lawsuit. His final check was mailed within 48 hours, minus all bonuses, all references stripped, a formal misconduct notice added to his employment record. Heather tried to pivot, claimed she was just following policy. But the logs told a different story. She had bent the rules for certain clients over and over again, but only when they looked a certain way. She didn't get a second chance. Our legal team also reviewed every hiring decision at that branch for the last 5 years. The results, a pattern of exclusion that went deeper than just 2 employees. We launched a full audit across all locations. Every branch would now undergo mandatory cultural competency retraining, bias audit of all hiring, promotion and dismissal decisions, anonymous employee surveys with direct reporting to my office, quarterly customer treatment reviews at random locations with unannounced CEO visits, conducted by me and a rotation of diverse board members. Because a reset wasn't enough, we needed a reckoning. And the ones who had been pushed out, forgotten, ignored, we were bringing them back in the Latina assistant manager who'd been let go, I called her personally, offered her her job back with a promotion and full back pay. The two tellers who transferred out both returned as team leads with autonomy to rebuild the branch's public image. And the clients who had been disrespected, we launched a community outreach program in their honor with a face they recognized at the front of it. Mine, because I wasn't going to fix this from the shadows. Not anymore. The people who built their power off arrogance, they got exactly what they feared most: exposure, humiliation, and replacement by someone they never saw coming. It's one thing to fire a bad manager. It's another to fix the culture that let him thrive in the first place. That was the part I cared about most, because revenge, that fades, but reform, that changes futures. So I didn't just walk away from that branch with a viral video and a sense of vindication. I stayed. Over the next few weeks, I came back again and again, not as a CEO in a suit, not with cameras, not for headlines, but as a man walking into a place he was rebuilding from the floorboards up. The first thing I did, tore down the executive bios on the wall near the conference room. All white faces, all men, every single one. It wasn't an accident. It was a message, and I was done with that message. We replaced the display with a mural, real employees, real customers, real communities across race, gender, language, and age, a visual promise that this place now belonged to everyone. Next, I restructured hiring from top to bottom. We established a Diversity and Fair Access Council, not some checkbox committee, but a decision-making body with power to veto any hiring, promotion, or loan policy that didn't pass equity benchmarks. And we didn't stop at internal fixes. We launched a community banking equity grant, $5 million a year, earmarked for first-time Black and Latino homeowners and small business owners. The very people who were most often rejected in branches like this one, but the biggest change, visibility. For most of my life, I played the background, letting others take the spotlight, staying quiet, staying strategic. But I realized something that day in the bank lobby: silence helps systems stay broken. So I stepped forward. I started giving talks at business schools, community colleges, even high schools. I told the story, not just the part about the firing, but the part about the suffering, the patience, the power of keeping receipts, the danger of letting disrespect slide for the sake of professionalism. I partnered with 2 Black-owned community banks to build an entrepreneur accelerator. I invited fired employees from other industries, people who had been unjustly let go, to tell their stories in town halls. We gave them legal support, training, and in some cases, jobs. The goal: make sure no one with talent and drive ever had to shrink themselves just to survive. And at that old branch, the one where it all happened, we reopened it with a new manager, a Nigerian-American woman named Dr. Adeyemi, with 20 years of experience and the kind of calm, deep wisdom that makes a lobby feel like home. When I stood beside her at the ribbon cutting, someone from the crowd asked if I was the guy from the video. I smiled and said, "I'm the guy who got disrespected, yes, but I'm also the guy who decided to do something about it." Applause followed, not because I owned anybody, but because I showed up, because I didn't let the insult be the final chapter. I turned humiliation into transformation, not just for me, But for everyone they tried to keep out, sometimes life gives you the perfect moment to speak up. Other times, you have to build that moment yourself, brick by brick, choice by choice, until one day you walk into a room and everything changes because you refuse to stay silent 1 second longer. What happened to me in that bank lobby wasn't new. It wasn't shocking. And to many people who look like me, it wasn't even surprising. But what made it different was what came after, because I didn't just walk away with a story. I walked away with accountability. I walked away with a mission. It's easy to lose your voice in this world, easy to tell yourself to stay calm. Don't cause trouble, to be grateful just to be in the room. But what I've learned, what I hope you remember is this: being underestimated isn't always a curse. Sometimes it's your greatest advantage, because when they don't see you coming, they show you exactly who they are. And when the time comes, you'll be ready not to yell, not to beg, but to stand up and flip the whole system on its head. The day they denied me service, they thought they were putting me in my place. But really, they handed me the mic, and I haven't put it down since